So we therefore thought we'd change it around, and we started offering them some training on effective use of CRM systems, and they suddenly didn't have time. So this was quite a, the successes of the other two strands of the project seemed to be, exponential. They were continuing and gathering momentum, but whereas this one, I kept on coming up against a brick wall. So I don't know whether there were other experiences in other of the other projects, but 2 out of 3 isn't bad, but this one I did struggle with. The feedback we did get, which I think is fairly obvious, their customer relationship management was used for client information only. Well, I knew that without the survey, really. Again, another output, as I said, was that they were very, very reluctant to share good practice. They didn't want to give away their competitive advantage. Many of the training providers have actually, during the 2 years of this project, have actually closed. They've gone under because business is so competitive. And they also assumed that their knowledge of the CRM practice was better than ours, and which I've actually found a little bit worrying. But so this wasn't one of our stronger outputs for this particular part of the project. However, we did get some results, albeit some of them more negative. So I'm going to hand over to Brian, because these were some of the outcomes for the college, and probably more what you were going to instigate before you moved on, weren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, so
okay,
I'll hand it over to you.
The support given to gather staff skills through the survey was one thing, and what we tried to use this as a vehicle for was to look at what we needed in the college, what skill set we needed in the college to be able to deliver a good BCE outcome. Sales skills, particularly important and particularly poor. Okay, if you asked even a business development manager if they were a salesperson, the answer was no, I'm a consultant. And there was a huge antipathy to the selling of the skills of the product that we're offering by the staff. They didn't see that it was their role. So there was a large skill issue. There was also this new awareness of internal skills. We were going through TQS at the time, which is a training quality standard. It was very important in the FE sector, but basically it was to look at, it was aimed at looking at generating new business for the college. And we didn't have the skill set, so it sort of kind of links to this one. But what we were able to do, because we were talking to so many businesses at the time, we were able to use that as a marketing research, and we found that we were able to generate full cost programs that were specific to business needs. And the way I articulated this to the staff was, stop thinking about qualifications, start thinking about bits of qualifications. We can chop these qualifications up. So when the QCF, the Qualification Credit Framework, went live in early this year actually, we were able to generate quite a large portfolio aimed at businesses, and the reason we knew what the businesses wanted was we'd been asking them for the last year as part of this project. And then awareness through staff development, use of Web 2 type technologies, and we were able to build a confidence within the business community and also the community project areas that we knew what we were talking about in specific areas, podcasting being one of them, and we were able to point to the ability of the college to generate these podcasts in a way that was useful to all sorts of individuals. So I think that's about it. Are there any questions?
Did you got TQS?
No, we didn't get TQS, and that was one of the reasons was that the sales process, the process of delivery of income into the college wasn't well supported or understood by the academic staff.
Any more questions? Sorry, it's quite an abrupt end. I was just putting up
Yeah,
10 minutes to go, and then and that's about it. So, Ruth, do you?
I'm Ruth Jonesdale from the Jisc. I'm running a lifelong learning workforce course development programme.
Uh-huh.
And one of the projects in Gloucester have been developing a shell framework. So sort of an HE equivalent, I think, of the credit framework.
Oh yeah.
In that they're hoping, or they've got the sort of processes in place to be able to offer different size learning modules that can aggregate up to a higher qualification.
Sure.
I was just wondering whether you've got any links with any HEs in your area to sort of extend on any work that you might do with maybe feeding into HE opportunities.
There is, we don't have any specific links because we're very much looking at this from our own sector perspective. But the key issue that we came across when we were talking to businesses was that they didn't care about qualifications. It was the only reason qualifications were of any relevance was if they were funded. They didn't, but the opportunity cost of pushing somebody through a qualification was quite high. Let me give you an example. For instance, a level 4 and level 5 in management would be particularly applicable to a middle manager. And when you went and described to the managing director of a company, especially a small company that wants a level 5 full qualification, he said, well, actually, I don't want that bit or that bit or that bit. All I want them to be able to do is to manage their time properly, be able to do projects and write a strategic or interpret a strategic plan. So when QCF came along, what we were able to do was say, well, we can take these 3 units, we'll sell those to you, and then the individual can come along to the college in their own time and do it. And that was a very, very seductive message to the sector. It was absolutely not what we wanted. We wanted full qualifications because that's how we were funded. But to be able to generate these small programs, which were part of the overall qualification. Another example would be we did some work with a company called Rexroth Bosch, who were very much a heavy GTIT company, and they wanted some networking training. What we were able to offer them was N+, because that's how we were funded. What actually they wanted was N+ Lite, so we were able to deliver N+ Lite to them at quite a lucrative way, and then bring their staff in to complete their N+. So we also got double funding. Essentially, it was full cost plus funding as well. So it was the ability, and this is why QCF is so powerful, and you'll find in HE it's the same. If you can deliver what it is that the organisation wants in terms of specific outcomes, you can then aggregate it up into a fundable unit. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that was a very powerful lesson from this particular project.
There's quite a few projects in sort of trying to do that taster approach to sort of get them into the foot in the door and get them to carry on. So did you have, did the individual, and another thing what people have said is that the individuals value the qualification, maybe not the
Absolutely.
employer. And so they would.
And this was the issue. It was here is us. We get funded for qualifications. Here is a business. They're not interested in the full qualification. What they want is the outcome of specific modules to meet specific objective requirements of the business. And here's the individual who wants the full qualification. Why do they want that? Because it improves their pay packet. So there's this whole sort of, so to be able to chunk it down was a very seductive message and made the sale a lot easier.
And did you get many students carrying on and
Absolutely, all of them.
together?
And Stephanie actually sold the Rexroth Bosch one, and they all came back. So it was very good. It's very positive.
Thanks, Sue.
My question's about sustainability, really.
Mm-hmm.
From the previous workshop and from this workshop, you can see that the projects have really been championed by people that are very passionate about what it is they want to do. But in terms of coming to the end of the project, in terms of perhaps 1 or 2 of those champions moving on, wherever you're going, how does the project maintain that enthusiasm and find new champions or continuation strategies?
The issue, the answer to that is very complex and very simple. The answer is very straightforwardly, don't look at it as a project in isolation, and that's what we didn't do. So we took this money that Jisc were kind enough to give us on this project. The project was, although I shouldn't say this with Jisc in the room, the project actually to this college was secondary. It was the ability to learn from the projects and embed the processes that the project was generating into the team. So that happened, and one of the things that came out of this project was a thing called a training passport. And this training passport allowed you to buy units of training. So you could buy a passport for, say, £1,000 and you get 1,500 quid worth of training. And that sat in the business development section. So they were able to see the benefits immediately because they started getting more and more throughput. And the processes that this particular project was very powerful in embedding these new ideas and seeing immediate benefit from them. So it is sustainable, but whether it lasts, Stephanie and my moving on, I don't know, but it should do.
If we take, for example, then training passports, how many training passports have been utilised, and has anybody used the whole of their training passport? Is this something
Can
we're
I
still
just
involved
step
in,
in
or-
there, because it's about 4 or 5 months now since
Yeah.
you've been involved in this particular project. We've got a business services division in the college, so me with my academic hat, there are some actual business specialists in New College that, as you said, the business development managers are part of. As a result of some of the skills audits that we did, there has been much more engagement between the skills that are embedded into the academic staff with this business services section of the college, which I've supported and driven. And what we have done, as Brian said, is we picked out modules of academia or academic qualifications and promoted them through this passport. And to answer what you're saying, this was launched during the summer months, so it's actually quite late on in this year. Momentum has been pretty good so far. A couple of local companies, again, it's not a project that I'm highly involved in at the moment, but I don't need to be, because we have a business services manager who's driving this now. There's a new website, there's a new set of, as Brian says, the pick and mix of qualifications, and the passport itself, I know, has been picked up by 5 local companies. Don't ask me to name them, but it's definitely happening. I had a conversation with him 3 weeks ago about it when we first went back to college. But that was as a result of the skills audit, where we actually used the information from how could we use the skills within the college to sell to local businesses. Any more?
So one final question, and then we'll break for lunch.
About the CRM,
Mm-hmm.
are you as a college using the CRM system?
Yeah, we are, but that's
You
another
actually
story.
produce the CRM system.
We do.
Yeah.
However, from my experience of CRM systems, the one that we decided in the end, although I did an evaluation process for this project, which CRM system I recommended wasn't taken ahead. In the early part of the project 2 years ago, I recommended that we took on Sugar because it had a lot of and Brian was with me at that point, we had a lot of the other add-ons and plugins that we required. But we had a new database for student enrolment, and we were encouraged to use the plugin from the EBS system that we use. Yeah, say no more. It's now been recognised, and I mean, you know this, that the CRM is not fit for purpose, and they are now moving into using Sugar. So some good came out of the recommendations from this project, and even the soft outcomes, which we haven't included in the presentation. So they are now pursuing the use of Sugar because of the limitations of the EBS plugin. But sometimes you have to try something to know it doesn't work, don't you?